Welcome into another edition of the Gig'em 24/7 Sports Podcast. I am Andrew Hattersley, joined once again by Brian Perroni. Brian, how's everything going?
Oh, not bad at all. Nice little long weekend. Hopefully everybody got some rest and got to rest after the excitement of a pretty big week on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, I don't know if we're noticing a trend here, but as soon as we kind of got this podcast launch and going, things kind of picked up on the recruiting trail. I think we kind of deserve some credit for that.
Yeah, there hadn't been a commitment in it was quite some time, and yeah, there were three last week, and I mean we only got to talk about Tyler White, and I mean it was an exciting commitment. The
Yeah.
transcendent punter, but there was even more after that. So yeah, so what's going to happen? I guess after this one's taped, who knows?
I know, right? We got another three ready to go, or right along there, right? It turns out Tyler White was just the start of it because A&M also picked up commitments from Bravion Rogers and Javon Thomas on back-to-back days after that, on Tuesday and Wednesday, and kind of jump started that DB room. Let's start with Bravion Rogers because that one came together really quickly. He received an offer in early April, visited on back-to-back weekends, and went ahead and made his commitment. And I think you brought up a good point on the board that his indication that he was willing to camp at A&M over the summer to earn an offer as a top 100 prospect was kind of an indication of his strong interest in the school and probably a good reason it came together pretty quickly once he did get the offer.
Yeah, I mean that's a kid that he had Alabama, Texas, quite a few offers, and yet he still wanted to camp at A&M because A&M wanted to see him in person. So they said, "Hey, come to camp." You don't see national top 100 kids do that.
Yeah.
A&M has gotten those 5-star types to camp the past couple of years, but it's not one. It's just ones that have offers and are looking to have fun and test themselves and everything. It's not guys that are coming to earn offers, especially an in-state guy. So yeah, you just knew his interest was sincere. And when I went down there to LaGrange last week, and he and I were just chatting a little bit, he told me that he was offered on April 2nd, 2 weekends ago.
Yeah.
He told me he knew then. He said, "I knew I was going to be an Aggie." And so when he came back for the spring game, he ended up committing while there. He ended up telling the coaches that he was committing, and then just waited a couple of days to announce. I was wondering, Jimbo Fisher always, it seems like he likes to have one announcement a day and to build some momentum. And I'd asked Bravion, I said, "Hey, did they want you to announce on Tuesday when they did?" Because I think Tyler White was Monday, and he said no. He said it's just he woke up that morning and was like, "All right, I'm gonna let the world know what I've already told A&M." So great pickup. Good kid. Can play a number of positions. Athletic kid. And just a good start to that DB room and what could be a really good haul.
Yeah, it's a great start, and a guy that as you mentioned, picked up a ton of big interest, and is ranked as the number 7 corner in the country. So that's it's a tremendous start, and one day later they end up adding Javon Thomas as well, and that's one he seemed to be moving closer to a decision over the past couple of weeks. Went on the visit to LSU, and I know you spoke with him as well. That was one that once he went on the visit to LSU, kind of reaffirmed his decision. But A&M had kind of been in a good position there for a while, and another really good player. It's a guy that I've had the chance to see quite a bit up here in Dallas. Very versatile. Could impact the game in a number of ways, including possibly special teams, and kind of made a big impact for South Oak Cliff late in the year once he was able to get on the field, and is another really nice pickup.
Yeah, I mean, so I was talking to Javon afterwards. Got that interview that people on the site were able to read. He said A&M has talked to him about every single position in the secondary. So you got to love somebody who's versatile like that. He can play cornerback, he can play safety, he can play nickel, he can play dime. He said they're going to try and get him involved in special teams, maybe returning, maybe just going down there and busting some heads. Who knows? But just really good, versatile player. I mean, he was a standout running back at Corsicana as a sophomore and got a few carries in the playoffs last year for South Oak Cliff. So, that's those two, both national top 100 guys, him and Bravion Rogers. And I think, the lowest ranked of their, the major targets that are left. So, I mean, it's really impressive they were able to do that. But the one thing I would add on Javon Thomas is A&M has not signed a kid from South Oak Cliff in a long time. I was actually, I do have a bit of an encyclopedic knowledge just from doing this for a while. I couldn't remember a South Oak Cliff kid at A&M. I know, there's been Skyline ones, but it's been a long time since at least the 90s, if not before that. And not only is, South Oak Cliff is always going to be good, but I mean, they were a state championship team this past year. It was the first Dallas ISD state title team since the 50s. We're not counting Dallas Carter, but even if you count Dallas Carter in the 80s when they had their title taken away, I mean, that's still, over 30 years, so this was a really good team, a loaded team, loaded in the secondary. So getting an in at South Oak Cliff over there with the Bears is a really good thing. That's not going to hurt at all. So,
Yeah.
Javon Thomas is a big pickup in more ways than one.
And even just looking, like you said, at the next couple of years, it's not like this year is just a kind of a 1 year and done type of thing. This team has a lot of young talent for the next couple of years. And, if there was an area that A&M recruiting wise, there's not many areas that you would say there's a need for improvement. Maybe, in kind of Dallas area out of DeSoto and Denton Guyer, were areas that they wanted to get better at and wanted to make more of an impact. And being able to land a guy at South Oak Cliff, they might not even be done there with, Malik Muhammad, another huge target on the board. It's a great school to get in with because they're going to have a ton of talent in the next couple of years. And, like we mentioned, a guy that can make plays with the ball in his hand and, can rely on that experience. Speaking of that, just looking at the rest of the DB room, you and I were talking before the show about this, and the DB room as it's shaping up right now with still some other targets out there, including Jevian Taviano, Malik Muhammad, Tony Mitchell. There's kind of a feeling that this is turning into a bit of the D-line room from the 2021 cycle and how that all came together. And, when you look at a guy like Malik Muhammad talking to his dad last week, I get the impression A&M made a tremendous impression on him during the spring game. And one of the things he mentioned, which kind of bodes well for A&M, is they want to play behind a really good defensive line. So talking to him, I said, is Malik took note of what A&M just signed on the defensive line. And he said, how could you not? And so I think A&M has made a great impression on him. Alabama is obviously going to be another school that, he visited there this weekend, also has a ton of talent along the defensive line. And to me, it's kind of shaping up as those two duking it out for him. And it'd be huge to add another South Oak Cliff guy as well.
Oh, no, for sure. And I think you can tell that it has been a selling point for Jimbo Fisher and the team, that defensive line class from 22. So what is it? 4 stars, 6 national top 100 guys. And it's like, hey, these guys are going to keep some blockers off of you. They're going to get to the passer. These quarterbacks are not going to have much time to throw. And, that gives you a better chance at interception. So there really isn't, because Javon Thomas mentioned the fact that, that there was a defensive line class. Bravian Rogers mentioned the defensive line class. And then you said Malik Muhammad's dad mentioned the defensive line class. And that's something that they have all brought up themselves. So you know that A&M's definitely selling that. And yeah, this year's DB class. Now, okay, there aren't going to be 4 5 stars and 6 national top 100. I mean, that's just insane. You're not even going to see that with any other school at any position group. I mean, it was, I think, the first time in the rankings era, which goes back to 2001, that any school has signed 4 or 5 stars in one position group. So, I mean, that just doesn't happen. So, yeah, it's not fair to this DB group to say, hey, yeah, you're going to be, Gabe Dendy and Walter Nolan and Shamar Stewart. That's not fair to do that. But, yeah, it could be incredible. I mean, Tony Mitchell goes to school in Alabaster, which is right outside of Birmingham, what else is right outside of Birmingham? Tuscaloosa. I mean, he goes to school very close to Tuscaloosa, 30 minutes. And yet A&M is in a really good position there. He had gone to Florida. There were some quotes about Florida being a leader. I never really bought that. Still don't. I think it's an A&M Alabama battle. So if A&M can land a 5-star out of Nick Saban's backyard, Jimbo has already been a headache to Saban for the last couple of years. If he can land one from literally his backyard, and then you go and get Malik Muhammad, who is what? And basically an A&M Alabama battle. There are some other teams in it, but A&M Alabama battle. And then Javian Toviano, A&M Texas, and who else is involved? Alabama. If A&M is able to do that after doing that with the defensive lineman, I mean, those two positions are so key in the SEC. So if they can put together that class, and then we're not even mentioning, I mean, there's a chance they could flip Peyton Bowen from Guyer, a safety, from his longtime Notre Dame commitment. I mean, he was basically committed to Notre Dame for 6 months before he announced. I mean, he is like entrenched in that Notre Dame commitment. They got him on campus, and now he's talking about coming back for an official visit. I mean, it's just sort of crazy. We're seeing, I think other fan bases are going to be like, what is going on? They saw D-line 1 year. It's going to be potentially the secondary this year. I don't want to get ahead of myself, end up on Old Takes Exposed and when these people sign other places. But A&M has very real momentum with all 6 of those guys and could potentially sign a class with all 6 of those guys, which would be, I mean, I don't see how a class could top it. A DB class in the country could top that.
Hey, message board genius has already taken note of everything. Let's get, Old Takes Exposed on here as well.
No, for sure. I mean, we're not going to write off Arch Manning, but no, we're writing off Arch Manning.
We're writing off Arch Manning.
That's not happening. We took all the salt. We got rid of the salt. We got rid of Arch Manning. No, that's Arch Manning's
there has been a lot of confidence though, just around like this DB room, and even a guy like Javian Toviano. I think that's one where, talking to him has been interesting actually, because he has said when we talked at the Under Armour All-American, he talked about how A&M was really a school that he was interested in and really a factor. And, but then he also talked about the different approach that A&M was taking with him. He called it more of like a mellow, cool type of approach where they're not hitting him up every day. They're not kind of constantly going after him. And he mentioned he kind of liked it, that they were, kind of there, and he knew that they were there, obviously. And, TJ Rushing was obviously letting him know that he was interested. But, and now that we're kind of starting to get into the later spring, you're kind of starting to see A&M step forward a little bit, getting him on campus twice. And, there's still a lot of schools in the mix there. That's one that's kind of an interesting, he's not really tipped his hand as to where he's leaning or which schools.
Oh no, he's incredibly media savvy. I think
he's very media savvy.
He knows who he's talking to, because I've seen a lot of quotes where it says, "Blank school was my favorite growing up." Now, I mean, he could have some co-favorites, but that's a lot of favorites. Javian, if you're watching this, we're on to you. We know we're just going to start having random people call you that you don't know and see what you get. Sorry, I interrupted you though.
But he'll mention a lot of schools, and so to try to see who's kind of sticking out from that pack. It's one of those, but I think A&M has very much been in the mix there, and he's kind of made that clear that A&M's a school that he's interested in, and made that clear. And it's not going to be realistic. I know the confidence is really high around the A&M program about coming off the defensive line cycle. You're right. I mean, you can't expect that every cycle, but I think there's no doubt that we're not even getting into some of the other guys that could be in the mix. Like Ethan Nation is a guy that visited as well, and he really was looking forward to making that visit. Is in frequent contact with the A&M staff. Caleb Presley also talked about coming back potentially for an official visit.
I mean, that's a kid from Seattle's been down a couple of times. I mean, that's not a cheap flight, and easy flight to go to Houston and get there. So yeah, he's got some serious interest.
And he's talked about coming back in the fall to see what a full Kyle Field looks like. And then even a guy like Marvin Burks just included A&M in his top group of schools. So, it's going to be a really, really deep group, and a chance for A&M to be selective as well and kind of pick who they really like among that group and go from there.
I want to mention actually one more defensive back. We're sort of talking about the corners, but safeties in addition to Peyton Bowen. Kylan Jackson, okay. He goes to Zachary. That's the same school as Eli Holstein. So, it's not going to be maybe as easy that you don't have Holstein, his quarterback recruiting him to A&M. But he's a guy that legitimately is very high on A&M in his own right. And when I went to watch them play this fall, it really did. Watching him play, not only was he built like Leon O'Neal, I mean, same same sort of size frame as Leon was in high school and has the potential at it. But his game looked a lot like it. And so afterwards, I didn't even know if he would know who Leon was. Afterwards, I said, "Hey, do you know about?" I was like, "Do you know who Leon O'Neal is?" He's like, "Oh yeah, they call me Mini Wake 'em up over here." And so he's sort of taken to that. He styles his game after him a little bit. So that's going to help with A&M there. And Kylan's a really good safety. He was good at
Yeah.
camp last summer, and he was at he's been to A&M a couple times this spring. So that's another guy to watch, and he's really good. I think it's just not one that's getting a lot of mention by A&M fans, even though I think he's ranked in national top 150. He's 137 overall. So it's just crazy that a kid from Louisiana, from Baton Rouge, is ranked 137. Fans aren't even really talking about him. You guys have gotten spoiled. A&M fans, you guys have gotten spoiled. But
speaking of spoiled, you've even got Derek Williams is another guy that also took a visit earlier this spring, and also kind of maintains a quiet recruitment, and hasn't been abundant yet. So there's just a plethora of options just along the defensive back room, and we've and the defensive line group obviously that A&M is bringing in again this year. There's a ton of guys that we'll be able to dive into later this spring that they're in the mix for that could also be a selling point. It's not just last year's class that is going to be a selling point, but they're off to a good start along the defensive line this year as well. And so I agree with you. And a guy like Peyton Bowen's interesting as well. Going back to him because A&M kind of got in the mix late for him, and by the time that he had picked up the offer, I think things were down the road with Notre Dame. But they've quietly stayed in contact with him and were able to get him down on that visit. And there's still plenty of time to go until signing day. And I think A&M is certainly a school that has his interest, and obviously A&M already has some ties over at that Dengeyer program. So with that, we're gonna take a break from recruiting and turn the page to some team talk. Even though the spring's over, there's still plenty to discuss. So
that's a perfect time to talk about it.
What's up?
That's a perfect time to talk about it.
Exactly.
You got a full body of work.
We won't use the word that Josh Pate doesn't love using, but we'll be back to touch on a couple storylines right after this quick break. All right, welcome back. Brian, looking at this team coming out of spring, this is probably a good time to look at where kind of the strengths and weaknesses of this A&M team are. Keeping in mind that they're going to have the full complement of guys obviously arriving this summer with guys scheduled to arrive around Memorial Day weekend. Which position group do you feel like A&M is in the best shape with and where they should feel really good about?
Okay, first of all, completely unrelated. People spell my name. I laugh at the different ways that people spell my name incorrectly on the message board. People that have been subscribers of sites I've been at for 15 years. I type my own name wrong. I just looking at the screen. I don't know if fans can see that. I don't know if that shows up on your end.
Oh boy,
I spelled my name wrong. So just noticed that when we were during the break. So I'm an idiot, and I guess now
it's a case of the Mondays, right? Like
I'll forgive you guys more because
don't worry.
I can't even get it straight. I just made myself an heir to the Perroni beer fortune with the spelling.
I'll be honest, like my iPhone still gets my name wrong all the time, and it spells it without the E. So there's no love. It happens on there.
Okay, position group. I mean, it's a broken record, and some of the guys look good in the spring game. I mean, Tamisha Adelier had a great spring game. Marcus Burris, he had a great he started out his first series was awesome. He was a little quiet after that, but the defensive line group is the one I am absolutely not worried about because of what's coming back. I mean, you didn't have McKinley Jackson going through spring ball. You didn't have several other guys, Donnell Harris, some other guys going through spring ball. But the defensive line group, despite losing 5 guys that made it to the NFL Combine, I think could even be better. Shamar Turner, we went over this last week. Shamar Turner is really, really good. He was a 5-star. He was a guy that slowly moved his way up the rankings. DeMarvin Leal was up there the whole time. Shamar Turner slowly moved his way up as he just got better and better and bigger and seemingly more athletic. And so he can play really anywhere along that front line. I think he's going to be dominant this year. I think McKinley Jackson, I think he's going to return to form. And if he doesn't, I mean, there's lots of other guys behind him. The Walter Nolan's coming in, Gabe Dindy, as long as he's healthy by that time. Anthony Lucas, true freshman, had an incredible spring game. Things are coming together for him. So there'll be young guys mostly, but then you have, Elijah Judy and some older, veterans there too. I mean, I mentioned the sophomores as veterans, but it is what it is these days. So that position is one I think is going to be probably the best on the team. Is the one that I don't have concerns about. No matter, there were some struggles in the spring game, and they didn't look great all the time outside of Anthony Lucas and Tumisha and a couple other guys. They didn't look great, but it's not a position that I'm worried about, and I think it's going to just pace the team.
Yeah, and I think for me, I'm kind of with you. And the other part I was going to bring up on that is we've heard Jimbo Fisher so much talk about competition, and I think that's kind of what really shows forth in this with this defensive line group is if guys are not quite performing, there's somebody there that's right there ready to step in and was probably another really highly rated player coming out of high school. And for me, there's just so much depth and talent, and I'm not really concerned about getting them all on the field. As Jimbo Fisher kind of talked about, you just rotate them and play them. And they'll find a way to get all of them on the field and contributing and just the amount of, the guys coming in, the Walter Nolan, Shamar Stewarts, the, Anthony Lucases and the Gabriel Brownlow-Dindys. And then you still got guys like Fadil Diggs and Tanmise Adele and Shamar Turner. There's a good chance you're going to be able to keep them healthier too. And you're keeping them fresh. They're not having to stay out there all the time. And,
also, one injury isn't going to. I mean, exactly. If somebody goes down, I mean, somebody else is going to be able to step up. There's the talent there.
And the other part I think that's notable is they've recruited with versatility in mind as well. A guy like Marcus Burris is a great example. They've recruited him with the idea they could use him on the outside or inside. They've done the same with guys like Shamar Turner, and some of these guys are really interchangeable. That you can kind of find a way to get the best 4 players on the field and push some of the upperclassmen. I do think that they still need a guy like McKinley Jackson to really step forward and be consistent this year and have a really good offseason and kind of be that veteran presence. But there's a lot of guys that are going to be pushing for playing time, and it's going to be really competitive heading into the fall. And I think that's also going to make the offensive line better. They're going to get challenged in practice on a daily basis and could really help with the development side of that. On the other end of things, for me, the group that still has the most questions and losing a guy like Caleb Chapman as well and to the transfer portal. And, that happened when we were doing this last week. Receivers probably the group for me that still has the most questions. With Evan Stewart, I think Chris Marshall, like we've talked about before, has the talent to come in and really make an impact early, but they absolutely need more consistency out of that group on a week-to-week basis. Jimbo Fisher's made no secret that they want to be able to push the ball down the field more this year. And it's really kind of time for that group to kind of step forward and have a couple players step up.
No, for sure. And I mean, shoot, Anaya Smith, who, has been the best overall playmaker the last couple of years. I mean, he's been a running back all spring. Yeah. So, what is he going to do in the fall? Will LJ Johnson be healthy? And I know they'll get Achem back, so that'll be, a thing. But, him and, Chase Lane's going to see some time. But, yeah, you really need Evan Stewart to have a big year. Chris Marshall, he's only played 2 years of football still. He's really good. He's only played 2 years of football. So, I mean, all of a sudden in the SEC, it's going to be interesting those first couple games watching him. And then I think Moose Muhammad, he could be ready for his moment. And then You'll Keep Brown has been really good. So, yeah, I think the receiver group does have a lot to prove. The group I'd say I would be most concerned about, not because of talent level, but because of depth, is linebacker. I mean, truly, there's 4 veteran linebackers, and that's it. I mean, A&M plays 2 at a time, but that 4 guys, really, that's it. And then you have the true freshmen in Ish Harris and Martrell Harris, who is not even on campus yet. Both of those guys still need to add, college weight to their bodies, to be ready to, Ish Harris is probably 200 pounds, maybe 205. You don't want to, see him just try and run in, taking on running backs that are way bigger than him. So that's the concern to me is, hey, what happens if, Andre White gets tired or, injured or something like that? There's just really not a lot of depth with guys, transferring out or graduating. And so that's the one to really watch, I think, in fall camp, to see how these freshmen turn it on. But, even all year, it might be a balancing act, just trying to keep them healthy and then during games to, sort of balance out the playing time to where they're not just completely worn out.
Yeah, and it goes to that point that we just talked about with the injuries along the defensive line. If you have an injury or two along the defensive line, they've got so much depth there, and they really are kind of walking the fine line, trying to kind of make it through an SEC season with just not a ton of veteran guys there, and that to me though does make it all the more important that Ish Harris was able to get in during the spring and go through spring practice, because you never know where you're going to be sitting in September or October. Injury wise, and the fact that he's been able to get these 15 practices and kind of, it appears, get his feet settled a little bit and get up to speed on a college program.
No, he improved a ton. Once again, you and I saw him that first week of practice, and I don't know who looked more lost, if Ish Harris or Anthony Lucas looked more lost, but both of them, I mean, after a month or a little over a month, looked like completely different players. But so it is big to get him on campus and have him, because rather have him lost than in the fall have him lost and then all of a sudden be like, all right, now get ready to suit up on Saturdays.
Yeah, because it's go time. Once they get there, pretty much with fall camp, it's time to start getting ready for the season, and that's what kind of makes these 15 practices. And you really hope that Martrell Harris can kind of get up to speed quickly, and that'll make you feel better about the linebacker room. But I agree, that's one that that's going to be really interesting to watch. And on the receiver note, the other one I'd mention is Noah Thomas. Quietly doesn't get talked about a lot, but had just really good.
Yeah, we really shouldn't. He had the misfortune of being with 2 5-stars and just
he sure
committed early and just didn't get a ton of attention, but was really good.
Really good. Just he obviously missed the first game, but with an injury, and then after that, just went on a tear the rest of the year. And I put forth something for a preview later this summer about guys that maybe don't get talked about quite enough, and Noah Thomas was the guy for me that quietly had a really, really, really good senior year. And, is another guy that's new to the position and learning, so he might need a little time as well. But, there's some exciting guys. They just need guys to step forward and be more consistent. And, it's obviously going to be the talking point until throughout the offseason, until guys really do step forward. And then on the other one, finally, a position group that could surprise. For me, it's, I know it's under the first year under Steve Adazio, but for me, it's the offensive line, because you're obviously bringing back 2 guys in Reuben Fothery and Bryce Foster, who had really good years last year. But there's a lot of other guys that Aki Ogunbiyi and Jordan Spasovic, Moko. I think I got that
close enough. If it's not, people know who you're talking about.
There's a lot of bodies there that and obviously being able to build off Reuben Fothery and Bryce Foster is a really good start. Trey Zune is a guy I think that could really step in and be serviceable. Is he going to be, perfect in his first year starting? Probably not, but is a guy that I think can step in and play on that offensive line. And I really do think it's going to benefit them going against this defensive line every single day by the time the season rolls around to kind of be I think that's going to be, a tremendous challenge. And I really do think that group's going to play a lot better this year.
I mean, I hate to say it this way, but that if A&M is to live up to expectations, that group has to surprise. It just has, because right now there's just not a lot of high expectations, outside of, like you said, of Deuce Fothery and Bryce Foster. Can Matthew Wyckoff do something on the interior? Possibly. I do like Zune at tackle, so that's gonna, that one has to. If it doesn't, then A&M's going to struggle to move around those, the other schools that also have these D lines that look like the A&M one, and it could be long year if they don't, but it seems to be they took steps. The guys who played took steps in the spring and looked better. So it's going to be interesting. And I think a lot of those guys are stronger. Aki, I don't know what, I mean, he lost weight in high school and he just hasn't been able to add that back, which is a little strange. But if he's able to do that and still be athletic, I mean, his high school team, Kempner, his senior year, they threw fewer than 15 passes. All he did was line up and they said, hey, we're running the ball, and they just ran the ball behind him, and he just, drove people downfield. So he has the ability to do that. And so, yeah, he could be a key if they could get him back into that form, the one that Georgia was after so hard and that A&M had to flip back from Georgia and all that. So, yeah. That I would say that's the group that I guess could and needs to surprise as well.
Yeah. If there's another one, I think the defensive backfield could also kind of be an intriguing group to watch. There's obviously Tyreek Chappelle and guys like Antonio Johnson back, but I think you have more surefire veterans in that group. To me, that it has a chance to be an area of strength with the veterans that they do have.
Yeah, and there've been injuries. I mean, this is weird to say, but the injuries last year helped the depth this year, because you do have a lot of guys. Tyreek Chappelle and Deuce Harmon got a lot of playing time and had a start. And then obviously Miles Jones has a ton of experience. Brian George has starting experience. Jalen Jones, has started every game since he's been on campus. And that's a lot of guys. Damani Richardson? I mean, he's still playing. He's been around forever. Has started every game in his career. So, and then you got young guys. Bryce Anderson had a great spring. Who knows what Smoke Bowie will do when he gets in. Just guys like that. And so yeah, there's just a lot of experience and a lot of talent with young guys. So that should be a fun group to
and
watch.
Even Denver
once
Harris,
again,
Denver Harris is another guy that it's just a really deep room, and you talk about the versatility and ability for them to be able to move guys over. For me, I think a guy that's kind of intriguing on the back end is Jordan Gilbert, who has been a name that we've kind of heard.
Another guy, that has some starting experience.
Could allow you to kind of move. I think Jimbo was asked about it during the spring about, where do you see Antonio Johnson playing? And he kind of said everywhere. And, just kind of, you can move him around. And there's, when you have a guy like Jordan Gilbert back there, it allows you to be able to do that because you just have so much depth and guys to turn to. So for me, that's on the defensive side, I think, and they're going to benefit from playing behind a good defensive line. So, with that, I think that'll go ahead and wrap us up for today. As always, be sure to hit the or as Brian would say, mash that like button on Spotify and iTunes.
Just pound that subscribe button, whatever. Mash the subscribe button. Do whatever you want, or just touch it, just right there.
Get the notifications whenever a new video goes up from the two of us, and we'll see how things continue to go on the recruiting cycle. I think guys are going to start lining up official visits here in the next couple of weeks and kind of looking ahead to the summer. So that's going to be interesting to watch, and gonna have you covered on Gig 'em 247 with all the latest. So Brian, anything to add?
You talked about official visits going back to recruiting. There is, as of now, there is one, not this coming weekend, but the weekend after, when Adam Hopkins, who is a player that if things go as expected, fans may want to get to know his name. He's a wide receiver from Georgia that also plays DB, but he's being recruited by Damian Craig. So get to know the name Adam Hopkins before, not trying to say something will happen, but there's a reason I'm telling you to get to know his name before the April 29th weekend.
Yeah, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. That'll be a week.
I mean, he could reschedule. The board could change. They could decide to focus on other guys. But if that visit happened today, I think there would be a good chance that Adam Hopkins would be a name that fans would be learning today.
And that's also a guy that you talk about familiarity with some guys in the 2022 class. He's obviously very familiar with, plays kind of on the same 7-on-7 team as a couple guys that were A&M targets during the 2022 class. So definitely a name to know and a guy that has an official visit coming up, and we'll have you covered with all the latest on him over on Gig'em 247 on 24/7. So with that, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you guys soon.